and welcome back to my channel. This is chapter 7 in the Emperor's Courtesan, book 1 in the Valspar Legacy series. I am Allison, the author of the Emperor's Courtesan. If you are new to the channel, I highly recommend checking out the other videos in the playlist or reading the other entries in the blog linked on the channel and in the description, or you'll be confused as to what is going on in this video. Now, let us begin. Chapter 7, Sayana. We're already discovering I cannot read today. The 6th day came, and Sayana was excited. Today was the day she'd be able to talk to Ajira and the boys. Hannelore intercepted her on her way out of the dining hall after dinner. You're to come with me. She'd already collected Callum. It's time to make that call you've been wanting to make since you got here. They went to the head matron's office and waited as the link was established to the Scholar Academy. Then Ajira and the boys had to be retrieved. Finally, Sayana and Callum were seated with a reminder they only had 15 minutes. Saya, Cal, are you okay? Ajira asked, hanging on to Ethan and Ian's hands. They were dressed in gray bodysuits with loose hoods hanging over their shoulders. Their hair had been cut short. We're fine, Addie, Sayana reassured her. How are you? We're okay. She was positively beaming. There are so many lessons. They're mostly focusing on teaching Ian and Ethan how to read and write and their numbers right now, but once they learn those, they'll get into the better classes. I'm taking so many classes right now. There's one in history and one in science and one in math and one in logic and one in reading. I'm learning to read faster than I already do and to understand better than I already do what I read, and one in writing. I'm learning to write on actual paper. I mean, real paper like they talk about in the history books. It's weird but fun. We're in classes too. Nothing as interesting as you're taking, at least to me. Callum grinned at their younger siblings. I think the voice lessons are interesting. They're teaching us how to talk without weird vocal tics, and it's so fascinating. I didn't even know I had a vocal tic until the teacher pointed it out. I'm now working to fix it because a courtesan with a vocal tic is very annoying, she says. Sayana told her sister. Are you taking lessons in reading and writing too? Ajira asked. No, but we are getting lessons in math and the history of Atania and playing musical instruments and poetry. I think they're fascinating. Sayana bounced a little as she spoke. You would. Callum nudged his sister with a grin. I will admit to liking the dance class, though. At least we get to get up and move. Ajira giggled. You always liked being up and moving. Do you like the dancing, Saya? It's okay. I think it's way too stiff and formal. I like to fling myself around and bounce and whirl, and that's not this kind of dance. Sayana shrugged. Sounds kind of boring. Ajira frowned. It is, Sayana giggled. To her. To me, it's fascinating. It's like a big game. You follow the directions and get from one place to another with a series of moves. It's great. Callum gestured wildly, and Sayana ducked so as not to get hit in the head by her brother's flailing arms. Ajira giggled again. It sounds like Saya likes the book work and you like the physical stuff, Cal, just like before. Yeah, that does fit us really well, Sayana giggled again as well. Ian, how do you and Ethan like your lessons? They're hard, Ian grinned, but fun. I like books, Ethan laughed. I want to read more. Well, keep at your lessons and you'll learn to read more like Addie does, Sayana smiled at her younger brothers. Addie reads big books. Teachers yell at her. Ethan looked at Ajira anxiously. Addie? What does he mean? Sayana looked at her inquisitively. I read books that are for older students and then ask lots of questions. Ajira smiled. The teachers tell me I should stick to books more age appropriate. She stumbled a little over the last word. I tell them those books are boring. Sounds like Saya, except she doesn't ask a lot of questions. Callum nudged his sister and she giggled yet again. I'm not a fast reader like Addie either. I don't mind. And if I have questions, they can wait until I'm bigger and can ask the questions at an appropriate time. Sayana grinned at her younger siblings. Maybe I should do that too. Write them down in my journal and ask when I get bigger and I'm supposed to be reading those books. Ajira looked thoughtful at that. The children talked for several more minutes about their classes, their teachers, and what life was like at their academies. A hand settled on Sayana's shoulder. We have to go now. We'll call again in a week. Okay. Ajira glanced over her shoulder briefly before turning back to the comm. Love you. The boys echoed Ajira and the call ended. Sayana, would you mind staying for a moment? The headmistress asked as Callum headed for the door. Yes, head matron. Sayana stayed in her seat as Callum left. What did Callum mean when he said what your sister is doing sounds like you? The head matron asked. Sayana smiled. I don't like books for children. They're boring. I read books meant for adults. I'm reading a philosophy book right now. I'm very slow at reading it because I have to look up words I don't understand. And even when I look them up, sometimes it doesn't make sense. I just make notes of questions to ask in a few years when I'm older and won't get scolded for reading the book and move on. Is this normal for you? The head matron looked at her with some interest. Me and Addie both, though we never had anyone to answer our questions because our mother didn't read like we did. We didn't have much in the wing, and what few toys we did have we gave to Ian and Ethan, so Addie and I would spend hours reading. Sayana shrugged. It was what we did to pass the time. And what did Callum do? The head matron asked. Cal was always sneaking out of the courtesan wing and exploring the house and grounds. He'd get caught, punished, brought back, and the very next day he'd be out again. Sayana shook her head. He never liked sitting still. Mother taught him to read and write and to do some basic math, but he never focused on his lessons the way me and Addie did. I take it Callum was the one who acquired the lockpick and the jammer that he had on him when Penn found you five? The head matron asked. Sayana nodded. He knew where everything was and knew who he could sneak past to steal things. Well, it was my idea to steal food from the kitchen before we left. It was Cal who chose what we took. It was Cal who picked the shops to steal from. And we only ever took what we needed and never much from any one shop. How did Callum know anything about the city if you'd never been outside the courtesan wing? The head matron seemed genuinely curious, and Sayana didn't mind answering her questions. Mother talked Father into letting Callum go into the city with the servants. Sayana grinned. It was a way to get him to settle down when nothing else worked. He went out all the time when the servants went to buy supplies for the house, so we learned all about the city. That's how we knew where we could hide. One of the kitchen helpers used to steal from the house and hide it there. She got caught and was sent to prison, though, so she stopped using it. Your brother was the mastermind behind your escape? The head matron was watching Sayana closely. He was. I helped where I could, but mostly I took care of Addie and the boys, and I helped him when we went out to steal. Sayana hated talking about the stealing. It still bothered her that they'd had to resort to that. How did that work? I assume you didn't leave Ajira and the other two completely unguarded. The head matron frowned. Callum rigged latches for the hatch to our hiding place. Addie had to stay awake to let us back in, but she locked the panel behind us when we went out so no one could get in while we were away. Worked out very well. Sayana frowned. I don't know how Penn got into our hiding place, though. I know we locked the latches. Penn uses psychics. He probably had a psychic fuzz you and made you think you secured the latches when you didn't. The head matron didn't seem particularly bothered by this. Sayana felt herself grow cold. If she'd done more than a quick burst to scan those men, she'd have been discovered. Better not to use her powers here at all if she could avoid it. It was safer. Sayana, he truly meant no harm. I know everyone is taught to fear psychics, but they were only working to better protect all of you. Hannelore had noticed her distress. Okay. Sayana wasn't going to tell him the real reason she'd gone pale. Why don't you go back to your room now? Hannelore, show the child the way just in case she gets lost. I know this place is like a maze if you're not used to it. The head matron smiled at Sayana. Yes, head matron. Hannelore led Sayana out and down to her room. There you are, Sayana. Good night. Good night. Sayana went into her room and changed into her sleeping outfit. She curled up with her book for a little while before putting it aside. She switched off the light and was soon asleep. Sayana moved through the next several months with more grace and ease than Callum did. Callum struggled with the academic classes because he hated having to sit still for so long. Sayana enjoyed the academic classes but found her dance class to be a trial because of the formal mode of dance that she was required to learn. The bright spot of her weeks was talking to Ajira and her brothers, seeing how they were growing and changing and hearing about their studies. Sayana wasn't happy with how pale Ethan looked. He was struggling to gain weight too, Ajira told her, and the scholar masters were quite worried about him. He was thriving in his classes, but his strength wasn't up to where they wanted it to be. They'd had a doctor in to look at him, and the doctor diagnosed him as a failure to thrive. Ajira knew this much about it, but couldn't tell Sayana what that meant. It made the adults around them very worried, though, so Ajira was worried. Sayana went to the doctor servicing the courtesans. Excuse me, what does it mean when a doctor diagnoses a child with failure to thrive? Failure to thrive? That's a peculiar diagnosis, and one that we don't often give. The doctor scratched his chin. It means that their bodies aren't performing up to the standards to allow them to live long and productive lives, and that it's quite possible the child in question will die before too long, no matter how hard we try to keep them going. Oh. Sayana's eyes filled with tears. Did someone say that about you? The doctor asked. No, my youngest brother over with the scholars. He isn't gaining weight and is really pale and isn't doing well, and they had the doctors check him out. My sister Ajira told me that she found out that the doctors diagnosed him with failure to thrive. She felt sick thinking that Ethan could die. I'm very sorry, little one. The doctor stroked her hair with a sympathetic hand. It's going to be hard for you, but your younger brother is not going to survive much longer. It's quite possible he won't make it through the winter. Failures to thrive often contract diseases in the winter that healthy bodies could fight off easily, and it kills them. Thank you for explaining. Sayana rubbed her eyes. She left the doctor and walked quickly back to her room. Callum was waiting for her. What's wrong, Saya? I asked our doctor what failure to thrive meant. He says it means Ethan's going to die soon, maybe even this winter. Sayana felt the tears start again. The doctor couldn't know what he was talking about. He hasn't examined Ethan. He doesn't know. Callum glared at her. He does know what failure to thrive means. I asked him what that diagnosis meant, and he told me. He's probably right, Cal. Ethan could die by this winter because his body just isn't performing up to the normal standards. Sayana wrapped her arms around her chest. I don't believe it. Ethan's just skinny. That's it. You're still skinny, and they're not saying you've got failure to thrive. Callum was getting louder. I'm not underweight anymore, but Ethan is. Sayana began to tremble. Don't go borrowing trouble, Saya, Callum snapped. You should prepare yourself for it, because if he does die, it's going to hurt bad. Sayana's voice broke as she spoke. He's not going to die, Callum shouted and stormed away. Is something wrong, Sayana? One of the matrons asked. Nothing that can be helped. Cal doesn't want to believe something bad might happen, and I do because I trust the doctor. I just have to prepare myself for it happening so I'm ready when it does, even though it's going to hurt a lot. Sayana wiped her eyes on her sleeve. Are you sick, Sayana? The matron asked with some concern. I'm not, but my youngest brother is. The doctor said he could die this winter. I don't want him to die, but I can see why the doctor says he will. If he does, I have to be ready for it. Sayana looked up at the woman. I'm sorry, Sayana. The woman came over, knelt down, and gave her a hug. Sayana buried her face in the woman's shoulder for a moment before stepping back. She retreated to her room. She tried to read, but tears blurred the words as she thought of losing Ethan. She couldn't explain it to Ajira without upsetting Ethan, and she didn't want to do that. She would have to carry the burden on her own, as she had for so long before. She'd known their mother was dying longer than Callum and the other children had known. Their mother had realized what was happening, but had kept it to herself. Sayana had picked it up with her psychic powers. Now she would have to carry this knowledge too and not tell anyone. A few more months passed, and soon Ethan was no longer joining the conversations. Jira said he was in the med lab, sick with some kind of fever that the doctors couldn't fix. Callum glared at Sayana every time they had a conversation with Ajira and Ian, because he felt she was still wrong. Then came the day when Ajira and Ian were very subdued when they spoke with Sayana and Callum. Winter was well underway, and it was bitterly cold outside. Snow, something the children had only seen in books and hollows, piled high around both academies and kept the children trapped inside. Saya, Ethan's dead. Ajira's voice was soft and broke in a small choked sob. He didn't get better. The doctors say the fever killed him. No, that's not possible. Callum stared at his sister. Doctors can cure anything. Not necessarily, Callum. The head matron interjected. There are things out there that the doctors can't cure, and it's well known that there are diseases that stump even the best doctors. But it was a simple fever, Callum protested. Doctors can cure a simple fever. It wasn't a simple fever, Cal, Ajira told him. It was something worse. The doctors tried to explain it to me, but I'm not a doctor and I don't know medicine, so I didn't understand them. What they told me was the fever attacked all of Ethian's organs and shut them down. They couldn't stop it. There was more, but that's all I can remember. I don't believe it, Callum growled. The doctors must not have tried. They could have saved him. Callum, the Scholar Academy did not kill your brother without cause, the head matron told him sternly. If their doctors said they couldn't cure him, they must have tried their hardest to do so and failed. He had doctors with him every day, Cal. I was with him in the afternoons, and there were always doctors with him, running tests, giving him medicine, making sure he got the right nutrients. Ajira was crying. He was never alone, not once. Doctors really tried hard to save him. They just couldn't do it. How are you and Ian holding up, Addie? Sayana asked as Callum subsided into sullen silence. We're being given 3 days to mourn him, and then we have to get back to our classes. Ajira wiped her eyes. The body's already been sealed, and because I told them we didn't have family we wanted the body returned to, they've sent him for cremation and interment here. Good. I don't want Father to have Ethian's body. Sayana's voice broke, and she struggled not to burst into tears. He won't get it back because Penn told the Scholar Academy that we were outside our father's care. He didn't have custody of us anymore, so we couldn't be sent back to him. Ajira sniffed and wiped her nose on a handkerchief she was holding in one of her hands. I wish I could give both of you a hug. Sayana wanted to reach through the calm and hold her brother and sister. I wish you were here to give us hugs too, but you're not, and we have to go on without you and Ethian. Ajira's lips trembled. But it's so hard, Saya. Ian dissolved into tears beside her. Sayana felt tears streaming down her cheeks. I know it's hard, Addie. Her voice was broken and she choked the words out. It's hard for us, too. We want to be there to hold you, but we can't. We have to be strong, and I don't know about Cal. But I know I don't want to be strong. We love you and it hurts to be like this. Will you call us next week? Ajira asked. Of course we will, Sayana promised. It'll be better next week. We'll be back in classes and we'll be able to work and not have to think about Ethian as much. It'll be better, won't it? Ajira looked pleadingly at her older sister. I don't know, maybe. Having something to do had helped when it came to processing their mother's death. Perhaps it would help them now with Ethian's death. I hope that's what will happen. I think I want to go back to my room now, Saya. Ajira wiped her nose on the handkerchief again. Okay, Addie, I love you. Love you too, Ian. Sayana reached out and touched the comm screen. Addie did the same. Love you, Addie. Love you, Ian. Callum's voice was rough and there was a hint of anger in it as well. Love you, Saya and Cal. Ajira choked out. Ian echoed his sister's response and the call ended. Callum, your outburst is very unreasonable and injured your brother and sisters more than it needed to. I understand you don't want to believe your younger brother was too ill to survive, but if the doctors can't save someone, it's not reasonable to say they didn't try, the head matron told him coldly. No one cares about a kid, head matron. Why would they go out of their way to save one? Callum asked belligerently. Sayana, why don't you return to your room? The head matron suggested. I need to have a word with your brother. Yes, head matron. Sayana left the office and made her way back to her room. She curled up on her bed and cried. And so, on a sad note, we end Chapter 7 in The Emperor's Courtesan. If you are enjoying the story so far, please leave a like and subscribe. If you're following along on the blog as well, I hope that you will consider subscribing to the blog. After 10 chapters, if I've gotten enough questions for a Q&A, I will be doing a Q&A video. So if you have questions about the worlds, the politics, the universe in general, if you're asking me for spoilers about the storyline, the novels, anything like that, I'm not going to answer those questions. But general questions about the universe, the story is set in, the politics of the universe. Heck, if you're curious how I came up with the idea for the Valspar Legacy series, anything like that, or if you just have general questions about my writing style or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments here or on my blog. I will put them all together and do a Q&A video after 10 chapters. And we'll post that to the channel as a separate video on top of the usual 3 chapters a week. I appreciate you all stopping by, and I wish you all the most wonderful day.